Okay, hello everyone. Today is Thursday, October 15th, and this is the CAPZ office hours. CAPZ is a subproject of SIG cluster lifecycle. Please make sure that you follow the CNCF code of conduct and be nice to each other. All right, so if you can add your name to the attendee list, and we'll get started. So before we start, is there anyone here who's here for the first time at the meeting and who'd like to take a small moment to introduce themselves and tell us what they're here for and what you're interested in?
Well, today is my first attendance of this meeting. I'm Craig Peters. I'm a PM. I actually work very closely with David, Matt, and Cecile. And my interest is, I will add my name to the attendees, but my interest is in understanding where V1 Alpha 4 is headed and starting to move towards what Cecile was mentioning earlier before the recording started, which is getting more users involved in this discussion.
Welcome, Craig.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So let's start with the discussion. We have one PSA. CAPZ 049 release is out. I think this was almost 2 weeks ago, but you can check it out. Let us know if you find any issues or found any GitHub issues that are relevant. But yeah, a lot of cool stuff went in that release. So check it out. Any questions on that or comments, anything I forgot to mention later?
No, all good. The biggest feature is the IPv6. That's like the main feature. And there's like a whole bunch of bug fixes.
Yes. Yes, try out IPv6 single stack if you're interested. Cool. Okay, the KCP upgrade job, my favorite topic.
Yeah, I just added it to every meeting until we figure out what's going on.
Yes, please keep doing that. So actually, Matt's PR to add logs to the workload cluster logs just merged. So I was hoping to kind of rely on that to get more info on it. And it's actually been green since that merged, so we haven't gone with repo yet. But
last time we mentioned we would do some metrics to kind of help figure out what the problem was. I don't think we've done that yet.
I think David said he was going to start on that. Is that still on the table, David?
That is next up in the queue. I was expecting to finish up the machine pool stuff sooner than it has finished. So I think I'm still investigating I will bring this up as another issue. We can discuss this separately, but as soon as my time opens up, I will be adding metrics and tracing. I expect that to be later today, tomorrow-ish, starting on it.
And I'll watch this to see if I can get a repo with logs, hopefully. Any other comments on that or questions? Okay, actually, I have a small related thing. I'm not sure if people have any ideas how we could maybe be more reactive to failing tests in the periodic ones, because right now, unless we go check them, we're not going to see failures. And I'm saying this because recently I noticed that so we actually have tests in two places. We have tests in the SIG cluster lifecycle tab, but we also have them in provider Azure. Where is that? You can see my screen, right? Yeah. So if you go in provider Azure periodic, towards the end, there's a bunch of CAPZ jobs that run the Azure file, Azure disk end-to-end. And the other day, I was helping someone out on Slack, and this is not CAPZ. I realized that they were just broken and not running, and this had been like that for a while, and no one had noticed. So it was a simple fix. It was just an image version that was wrong. So I fixed it, and now it's running fine. But I'm just wondering if it's too early to be thinking about adding alerts or things like that, or what do people think?
I think we should be getting alerts.
I like
Unless
the
it's
idea of
constant. Sorry, go
agree.
ahead.
I was just going to say, if the signal is clean, then alerts make a lot of sense, especially as we're trying to get more users.
Next question is, where should the alert go? I don't know if we have a set up mailing list. Like I think it's too noisy to send to the whole mailing list. So we should probably have like a CAPZ specific one. I don't know if that's already set up or not, but I can look into that.
What about in Slack? Or
That'd be great. Can we do that?
I think so.
I'm sure.
Okay. We should look into that option. That'd be a great option. Cool. Anything else on that topic? All right. So Calico version update blocked. I wrote that down. So we're currently on Calico 1.12. Like the example add-on that's in the repo is 1.12, and I was trying to bump it to 1.16, which is the latest, but I'm running into a failure coming from the CAPI test framework, where the test framework, I haven't really exactly pinned the root cause yet, but it basically like fails with customized execution error, because the argument list is too long. So I'm guessing that has something to do with the file of the CNI size, because that's the only thing that changed. And because it increased a lot. And so now it's just failing to build the config directory. I opened an issue in CAPI, and Fabrizio and I are both looking into it, but just a heads up that that's probably not going to merge right away if we need to change to CAPI. Yeah, David?
So I've run into this issue before, and it was, oh, thank you, Matt. It was when we were piping in to customize, or we were taking customize, pumping it into event substitute, right? So
Yeah.
When you do that from the command line, if your pipe is too big, it fails, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we just need to write a temporary file and use the temporary file as input, if possible.
Yeah, so I saw the issue you're talking about. That was a PR from James to fix the tilt file that was doing that. But the thing is that we're not exactly sure how that's happening yet, because the place that throws the error does not take the CNI config, if that makes sense. And then I also tried to repro with CAPZ, the Docker provider, and I couldn't repro it using the same CNI file. So there's something strange going on that's still not clear.
Maybe it's one of our scripts. Maybe it is. Are you sure it's in the test framework?
Yeah, the error that it's throwing has the line in the repository.go file that's in the test framework. So, but yeah, I still have to debug a little bit, but I agree, if that's the same error that we ran into before with tilt, that's what we should do, but it's not clear that it is yet.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so yeah, I'll keep you all posted for updates. Okay, I think that's the end of the discussions that people had added. Is there anything else someone wants to talk about? We can talk a little bit about V1 Alpha 4 planning and the milestone and all of that, and the roadmap if people are interested. unless there are any other topics that you'd like to bring up.
I'm gonna just give a quick update on the multi-tenancy thing that I've been working on for some time.
Go for it.
I just pushed some my code changes. I had a chat with David yesterday to ask him a bunch of questions, and then I pushed my code. This morning, I'm having some weird issue that I was just gonna send on Slack to David and Anish to kind of take a look at. It seems that I'm not passing something correctly to the pod identity library. So it's giving me an error about something missing, like resource ID missing, even though I think I'm doing that. So I was gonna send that on Slack after. I pushed my latest code this morning, so if anybody wants to take a look as well. That's it.
Is the error in the end-to-end test, or do you report that manually?
No, I'm still manually trying to
Okay.
make it work because it hasn't worked yet.
Got it. Any questions for Nader on multi-tenancy? Okay. While we're at it, I'll also give a quick update. I just remembered on my API server endpoints PR. So it's ready for review. And basically what it's doing, it's adding a API server load balancer spec to the Azure cluster network spec, which will allow you to specify an API server type, which can be internal or public. And if you select internal, that means you get a private cluster, so private API server endpoints. And yeah, so the code is there, unit tests are there. I'm just working on an end-to-end test, which I haven't pushed yet. It's in my local branch, but it's not working yet. So I'm still working on that. But in the meantime, if you want to start reviewing the code itself, that'd be great. It's a pretty big PR, but a lot of the changes aren't like real changes. So the actual logic shouldn't be too big. There's just a lot of testing and webhooks and things like that. Any questions? Okay, so I think that's it for topics. Craig, you said you wanted to talk a bit about V1 Alpha 4.
Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't done my homework and kind of dug into what's already there on the CAPZ side. And unfortunately, I can't attend the meeting tomorrow that was recently arranged. So I'm wondering what this group's perspective is about the big blocks for V1 Alpha 4 for CAPZ.
Yeah, so for CAPI, the backlog grooming is still like, yeah, it's happening tomorrow. And so the milestone is not completely planned yet. But if you want to get a sense of what's happening, I'd suggest going to milestones in the CAPI repo and then checking out the 040 milestone, which I think is where most issues that we are planning on working on have been added. And then also the book has the roadmap, and that is like the, I guess, more concise version of it, like the big user-facing features. Actually, that's not the latest one. Sorry, I think it got merged into the main branch, but it's not updated in the book yet. So, anyways, I'd recommend, yeah, just going in the repo and looking at it here.
Okay, that's very helpful. Thanks.
But yeah, so that's for CAPI. For CAPZ, there are a few things going on. So I think we're holding off a little bit because we want to see what CAPI does first, because that's going to impact us. Like, we're just going to take that in and then add our own things on top. So we're still focusing right now. We're still doing V1 Alpha 3 features. And we're planning on doing another release 0410 before we start adding the V1 Alpha 4 types to the main branch. So this is the current milestone that we have in place. And I think all of these are doable by then. I think we're targeting end of October, but a lot of them are already in progress. There's only one that's unassigned. So that's what we're targeting for now. And then after that, in terms of V1 Alpha 4 features, there's the cluster API Azure book, which has a roadmap. And where is that here? And well, some of these are already in progress or done. So we're a bit ahead of ourselves, but these are the big ones that we said we should have by V1 Alpha 4. So I think out of these right now that are missing is bootstrap failure detection, which would add the VM extension. And then GPU nodes, I think Matt was maybe going to work on that. Private clusters,
that'll be done pretty soon, actually.
Okay, great. Private cluster I'm working on right now. Multi-tenancy meter is working on right now. Worker nodes, that's also being worked on by James. And then IPv6 is already merged. So we should probably add new stuff is what I'm realizing right now by looking at this for V1 Alpha 4. But
that's
we have
an exciting position to be in, yeah.
In backlog.
Bit off less than you can chew.
Any thoughts, comments, ideas?
Actually, I was gonna ask Craig if, like, from your perspective, if there's like big things that are not there that you think should be there, because like from a PM perspective, I mean, like, we know what big features to work on, but is there like a big missing block or something?
Not that I know of.
What's blocking users from consuming CAPZ?
Well, the last few I've talked to, the things that were blocking them were things like GPU. There's GPU use cases, there've been Windows use cases. So and then the private clusters. Those are the three things that I have talked to users about that they wanted. So once these things are out of the way, I would be willing to think about that as an MVP and push people much more aggressively to CAPZ. Does that answer your question, Nader?
Yep.
I'm very pleased, and it's cool that this is coming in ahead of where you guys thought it would. I'm very happy about that.
The other aspect of V1 Alpha 4 is the API itself, which we're trying to stabilize by since we're coming close to beta. But CAPZ itself had, let's say, less refining than CAPE has had in the last year. Just because at the time where we moved to V1 Alpha 3, a lot of us were new to the project and we were still like picking it up. So I think we did a lot of like lift and shift and not much actual changing of the APIs as for V1 Alpha 3, just like trying to do the minimum to support the CAPE types. So I'm hoping for V1 Alpha 4 we can be a bit more like opinionated about how we add the new types. And sorry, this is not the right issue. Yeah, I have this like in progress issue that I've had since May that was just like tracking things every time something came up in an issue or a PR in a review, like a breaking change that someone suggested. I would just write it down so we can like go through this list and just like see the ones that we still want to do, and hopefully try to like consolidate a little bit. Right now, for example, the Azure cluster spec is a bit all over the place. Like there are a lot of fields like that are exposed individually, and it could be like a bit more organized in terms of like security or spec, storage spec, network spec, things like that. So this is more like the UX side of it. But
that makes sense. So what is there any way to protect a user who say adopts it with V1 Alpha 3 and minimize their costs as they move to V1 Alpha 4? Can they just?
Glad you asked. So that's why we have conversions in place. So the API conversions actually, like every time you make a change to the API that is like, that would be breaking from V1 Alpha 3 to V1 Alpha 4, and that requires manual conversion. it's expected and it's actually enforced by unit tests that you would add a conversion that comes with it. And so right now we have conversion from v1 alpha 2 to v1 alpha 3, but once we add v1 alpha 4, v1 alpha 4 will become the new hub. And I think we'll deprecate v1 alpha 2 and just remove it altogether. So we'll have conversions from 3 to 4. And that's just the like thing that says like, oh, like if you, what's a good example of this? Like, okay, for example, in v1 alpha 2, we had API endpoints. And then in v1 alpha 3, it got changed to control plane endpoints. And so this is like converting API endpoints to control plane endpoints or vice versa.
So if I get those objects from v1 alpha 4, I mean, the objects will still exist, but I'll get the v1 alpha 4 representation of those objects.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And it works round trip too. So you can also convert down to v1 alpha 3 and then back.
So it's not really breaking. So is the vision that that would also happen for beta 1?
Yes.
Okay. This is a very nice thing to communicate to users to help reduce any resistance.
So of course, like we are still an alpha project. And so the expectation is that breaking changes are allowed at that stage. But I think we, when I say we, is like the whole cluster API community has been, I think, more on the cautious side of things and tends to like disallow breaking changes and add wait for a big alpha or big minor releases with conversions rather than do them in the middle of a release, just because we do have existing users in production and we know people are relying on this, so we don't want to break people from, if it can be avoided.
Thanks for answering my questions.
No problem.
I think these still in cluster API said there would be like a v alpha 5 or something before beta, right? Like they don't want to do beta
Yeah,
anytime soon.
I talked to Vince about that and he said that's still TBD.
Okay. Yeah.
Like v1 alpha 5 could potentially turn into v1 beta 1 if we feel ready. So
is that because there's some big anticipated change to the API that wants to come in alpha, that would break beta? Is that just, or is that just an abundance of caution that the cluster API community has? Okay.
I think it's more the latter. I don't think there are any expected changes that we know of. I think it's just like trying to not go too fast approach. So, and since already, I guess the other way to look at it is they're considering that people are already using it in alpha, so it doesn't really, matter. I guess it does because we are like, there is less adoption because it is alpha, but I'm not sure. I think it's just the idea of wanting to get it super stable and be like very sure before going beta.
Okay.
Any other questions, thoughts? How do we feel about this? Should we be doing more planning at this stage? Are we in a good place for now while the v1 alpha 4 planning is going on?
I think it makes more sense, at least after the CAPZ alpha 4 is at least done with the grooming and it's more clear for us to have like some kind of planning, but now might be too early.
I agree, yeah. Okay. Any last minute topics? Anything else anyone wanted to discuss? Thank you for taking notes, David, through all my rambling. Okay. All right. Well, thanks all for joining, and we'll see you on Slack and on GitHub. Have a great day.
Great to see everybody.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.